Chapter 22. 2. A Meeting.
Delta 5 was a very different type of planet to Delta 4b. The desolate surface of this world had minimal atmosphere and was too hot for habitation. It consisted of an endless scorching desert. Once, rich mineral deposits had proliferated the area. They'd been systematically mined to extinction. The Confederation had benefited from the wealth, but callously left massive labyrinths, mountains of waste, and gouges in the planet's surface. Cities were constructed in worked-out mine cavities, expanding ever inwards into the planet's depths. A continuous underground metropolis formed when cities had merged, encompassing much of the planet's inner volume. Interplanetary docking bays were situated below the surface on either side of the planet, close to the poles. Automated force field screens allowed access to space vehicles through a series of airlocks. Zentran chose neither of these. The space cruiser's size didn't warrant a major facility. A smaller commercial docking bay suited their clandestine mission, one designed to cater for private craft like the cruiser. Reducing altitude, mountains of waste came to view. Zentran wondered,
where on this unsightly planet could anyone find a place to fit Nebulon's clue? Where the stars and the moon are with music in harmonious perception.
Zentran put the space cruiser down onto a conveyor floor in line with other small craft. The moving floor brought vehicles to high-density parking further below the surface. They were drawn through an airlock to the sanctuary of the inner world and breathable air. A fast and crowded lift took its standing passengers further into the planet's depths to gain access to the city. Welcome eating establishments presented themselves. They were modest, tidy, and clinically clean, but drab to the extreme. So were the people. Zentran, Zach, and Venru stood at a counter where they chose from a selection of hygienic but uninteresting nourishment. One couldn't really call it food. They parted with some local credits and sat down at a table. Venru looked around in disbelief.
I don't remember it like this.
She managed, almost choking on her food. Zack smiled at her.
You were a starry-eyed little girl then, when everything was bright, shiny and new.
Zack realized something. A hint of a smile appeared on Zentran's face as well. It was Nebulon who'd sent Zack to the restaurant where he'd met Venru. Venru was the music in the clue that the stars and the moon were with. He looked at Zentran. Zentran looked back at him, giving away nothing.
What?
Inquired Zack. No answer was forthcoming, mentally or otherwise.
What?
Repeated Zack. It was clear Zentran knew something that he wasn't sharing. Zentran looked at both of them and forced a smile.
Venru, what's the best recollection you have of Delta 5?
She thought for a while.
My dad took me on a ride in a lift which rose from the city to the surface of the planet and continued up against the side of a sheer-faced mountain. The moon rose above the horizon as the lift gained altitude. The sun had gone down and lit up the moon from its hiding place. I remember that's how my dad described it. Stars shone brightly behind the moon, and beyond the stars, a backdrop of blue, purple, and orange of the night sky completed the spectacle. It was the most beautiful sight.
It was the kind of magnificence Zentran understood. He grinned.
That's where we're going.
They boarded a fast, sleek underground train. The mountain skylift was a popular tourist attraction. They were informed that the entry hall lay beneath the foot of the great mountain. Venru sat next to Zack as the train hurtled towards their meeting with Nebulon. Opposite them, Zentran's thoughts were mixed with the happiness they shared and the dread of what he'd come to know from the council computer. He almost wished that he didn't know what he'd eventually have to tell them.
What is it, Zen?
Zentran looked away from his piercing eyes, but it didn't help. The intensity of Zack's question continued.
What happened back at Delta 4B when you accessed the council's computer system?
Still nothing was forthcoming. For the first time in their lives, there was a barrier between them. A screen which Nebulon had taught Zack how to use, and its know-how passed on to Zentran, was firmly in place. Ironically, they now sped towards a meeting with the man who had taught it to them. Whether it was a blessing or a curse was hard to decide. Did barriers have something to do with truth? Or were they the road for losing one's truth, one's abilities? Zentran knew that Zack had a right to know, but the time wasn't right. Like the vastness of space, time was relentless in the physical universe. As the train sped through the underground tunnel, even Venru sensed the mental turmoil between the two men. She chose to say nothing. Zentran measured his mental communication to Zack carefully.
Time can pass quickly and slowly. It is of no consequence in eternity. Be patient. I will tell you all. I did manage to retrieve data from the council computer. It's disturbing and I don't want it to affect you as it did me. The implausible content renders apathy on sane men who come to realize the actuality. Lies and half-truths are strewn throughout as well. I'm persevering through a minefield and the confusion is lifting. I'll let you know soon.
Reaching further into the depths of the planet, as the high-speed train propelled them to their destination, they began to encounter another side of the planet's drabness. Squalor and poverty-ridden tramps became increasingly evident at stops. Zack spoke softly to Venru to brighten the surroundings.
Besides the physical spectacle of the Skylift ride, what makes its memory so special?
Venru was lost to the world for a moment as she drew upon cherished memories.
My dad had been very distraught for a long time. My mother had disappeared without trace. They'd been very close, and as a little girl, I had no idea how to handle the situation. I'd become a quiet child, feeling my father's sadness as well as my own. What is there for a child to say? There was just the two of us in the skylift as it rose up to the view. I remember my dad humming me a nursery rhyme to dispel the silence. I joined in and found another melody that complemented his. It was my first encounter with harmony. Although it had seemed natural to me, it had amazed my father.
An ability which shaped your music talent.
Yes.
Venru continued to reflect, and no one interrupted.
It was the first time I'd seen my father smile. I must have seen him smile before my mother disappeared. But that's the first time I remember him smiling. I laughed and he laughed and we hugged and we cried the happiest tears. Then we marveled together at the wonderful view and didn't stop talking. He was the most wonderful man.
What happened to your father?
We were always on the move. For some reason, he could never stay in one place more than a couple of sequences. We ended up on the outskirts of the known planetary confederation, beyond the asteroid belt. The planet Tranor, the ape-like people. Then one sequence, just like my mother, he never came back.
A tear made its way down Venru's cheek. She wiped it away, and Zack hugged her.
How did you live on your own?
A local family took me in. They adopted me and brought me up as their own child. They were wonderful people and always encouraged my exploration of music. When I was older, we all moved to Delta One. My brother went to flight engineer school, and I started at music school. I didn't like music school much. It was too stifling, so I left and developed on my own.
The three walked across the Skylift entry hall. At a ticket office, they parted with more local credits for what was called the Sky Ride. Besides numerous tourists, local tramps mulled about, eager to help carry baggage or help with the vending machines, in the hope of a meager tip. A few more brazen of them asked for credits directly. They stood in the Skylift queue for some time. When they eventually arrived at the front of the queue, a tramp held the door of the lift as it sprang open. He attempted to make as if he'd opened the door for the disembarking passengers, hoping to obtain a few credits. His ploy didn't succeed, but continued pretending to hold the door open as Zentran, Zack and Venru climbed in. The tramp let them pass, still feigning holding the door open for them. Instead of standing back as the door closed, he stepped inside and let the door close behind him. It was Nebulon.